Emmie, you've changed my life, and I really appreciate it.
Hello, my honeys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Emmie. I'm a nutritionist and the creator of the Slim on Starch program, where you work with me as well as a mindset coach and a nutrition coach so that you can lose weight on a starch-based diet. If you're interested in working with me, then you can click the link in the down bar or just go to healthyemmie.org and apply to work with me and my team. Also, make sure that you hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video, which is every Wednesday and Saturday. Today, I am introducing you to somebody so special, and that is my client, Johnny. Johnny is 62 years young, and he is such a, to put it simply, stand-up guy. He really is the salt of the earth, and you're gonna fall in love with him through this interview. In the interview, he shares how he came to me and came to Slim on Starch after already following McDougall and knowing all the principles, but not losing weight. He was looking for what he calls the secret sauce, and he absolutely found it through our work together as he went from 220 pounds down to the 180s. So he lost over 30 pounds through our work together. And very quickly, if you have any men in your life that you want to see thrive on this lifestyle, then please send them this interview. Just copy and paste this link to them, and let's let Johnny do the talking.
I'm 62 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been on the Slim on Starch program since June sometime, and it's very successful. I'm excited about having been through the program and getting acquainted with you and your team. I'd recommend it to anybody. Growing up, I was always one of the fat kids and kind of got scarred by that as a kid, but lost weight when I was in my college years and kept most of the weight off until maybe in my 30s. And then it just slowly started climbing and climbing. I remember many times where my wife would bring me some clothes to try on, and I'd say, oh, these are too big. And it turns out they fit well. And then it'd be a matter of time and have to go to yet another size. And so just kept gaining weight and always frustrated with not having control of that aspect of my life. And anyway, about 10 years ago, started looking for a solution. I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I was about 242, again, about 6 foot tall. I don't know what that is on a BMI scale, but that's pretty obese. I've got some photos I could look back and look at, and I go, that was me? I can't believe it. Kind of aghast that I was ever that big, but went into a retail weight loss center, and they put me on a program, and I lost a lot of weight fast, and I was pretty excited about the weight loss. But after losing the weight, they put me on counting calories, which nobody had ever taught me how to count calories before. And so the weight kept coming back and more, and I was on the same program I was on before, where I'd feel frustrated about being so big. And fortunately, I didn't get rid of all my old big clothes, and so I didn't have to go buy bigger and bigger clothes, but would have to move into the bigger clothes, and just always kind of frustrated with myself. So for 10 years, I've kind of been looking for the secret sauce on how could I get a handle on this. And I wanted to lose the weight, but there was another concern that I had, and that is both of my parents are adult onset diabetics. And my mom even has to take a number of insulin shots every day, and she does great with it. She doesn't complain about it. But me not being there, thinking I might be there someday, it was just horrifying to think I'd have to stick needles in my abdomen several times a day because of diabetes. And so I wanted to find something that would get me healthy allow me to lose some weight and avoid the prospect of becoming an adult onset diabetic. And my A1C was heading that way, and so it looked like it might be inevitable for me at some point if I didn't do something. And I went through a number of different weight loss programs and had some success with probably all of them, but they weren't long-lasting results. And when you have to count calories or weigh your food or deprive yourself substantially of food, go around hungry all the time, I knew that wasn't something that was going to last a long time. So, watching YouTube things, different videos would come on. And one of the videos, I think, was of Dr. John McDougall. And that was probably one of the first videos I'd ever seen about going plant-based. And I found him fascinating. And so I got his book, The Starch Solution. And it was mind-opening. And I thought, there's really something to this. And he makes a lot of good points. And I then read the China study. And it just reinforced what I'd heard from Dr. McDougall. So I decided I needed to go and try whole food plant-based. And the thing that I had immediate results with was my weight stabilized. So I tell people my weight's always been like an elevator. It's either going up or down, but it's never on the same floor. But going on to just a plant-based diet, I finally levelized. But I levelized at an obese weight. I was about 220 when I decided to make that change. And that's about 2.5 years ago now that I went plant-based. And so when I got acquainted with you and your program in June of last year or so, a couple of things resonated with me. One was there's no counting calories, there's no weighing food, and you may have been the first person ever to say, you need to pay attention to your hunger cues. And I thought, wow, why? That's so smart. But God gave us these kind of sensations to feel full and to hungry, but nobody's ever talked about listening to your body and listening to hunger cues. So I thought, I probably could benefit from a program that talks about listening to your body, eating when you're hungry. And so, we got connected middle of last year, and the weight started coming off. And that was, hey, we found the secret sauce. I'm finally starting to see some results here. And I lost 30 pounds, a little more than 30 pounds. And I've really kind of been in maintenance mode since early December, maybe late November. Thanksgiving might have prompted me to go into maintenance mode, but haven't really lost any weight since then, but that's okay. My body seems to be pretty happy at about 188. I weighed myself this morning. I'm going, gosh, how long have I ever been this light and stable in my life? And I don't know that I ever have, but it's been great. Not gaining any weight, not losing any weight, eating to the point where I'm full, and not having to worry about depriving myself or counting calories or weighing foods. So it just is all natural, and I think it's a program that, if people follow it, and I'm following, I think I can do this for the rest of my life, which I'm so happy about it. So I finally found what I've been looking for, and it took me close to 10 years to find it. I'm I'm really glad we got acquainted. So it really paid off well.
I'm glad that we got acquainted too. And I love that you used the term secret sauce, because I remember you saying that on our first call, and it gave me a good laugh because you came with such a background. You knew about Dr. McDougall, you'd been doing the starch solution. Talk to me about you discover McDougall, your weight stabilizes. Did you lose any weight when you were doing McDougall before you started to work with me?
No, didn't gain, didn't lose, and it was a bit of frustration. And yeah, I'm married, no kids, been married for a long time, 38 years, married to love of my life. And if there's been any frustration in our marriage, it's probably been around food. She's a passionate Italian girl, and she loves to cook. And with me going vegan and her not, she doesn't have the opportunity to cook or cook like she would like to. She doesn't want to cook lasagna just for herself, for example. So she's seen me go through all these diets, and they've just been kind of flashes in the pan. You do this for a while and you lose a little weight, then you gain it back. And then you do this diet, you lose a little weight and you gain it back. And then you go on plant-based and you're not losing any weight. Why are you bothering? Please, let's start having lasagna again. But it was really nice to finally find something that worked. And people have seen that I've lost weight. We're in the middle of a pandemic. People don't get to see you as often as normal days would be. But when I've been out, people have said, "Oh, you look great" and stuff. And my wife has heard that, and I think she appreciates it. And she's doing things for me to support me in this lifestyle. My only regret is I wish she would join me fully in it, but it's her choice. She can do that, but it's working really, really well for me. But if I hadn't found you, she probably would have persuaded me to try something else besides being a vegan, because I wasn't controlling my blood chemistry like I needed to avoid being a diabetic, and I was just frustrating her in the process. So having finally got some results, I can justify staying plant-based.
There's a few things that I want to chat about. The first is you had gone on McDougall, gone plant-based, but you weren't getting results. What kept you being plant-based? Why didn't you try something else?
I guess I'm stubborn. The success of not gaining weight was probably enough of a motivator to keep trying it. And, everything I had read about being plant-based is that this should work. Mm-hmm. It should work. Mm-hmm. And, you're an old math teacher. I never was a math teacher, but I came out of school being an accountant. So, mathematicians and accountants aren't that far apart, I guess, in the food chain. And I think a mathematician is a person who just doesn't give up on the problem. They keep working it until they finally get a solution. So I really felt like I was on the right track. And the things I'd read in McDougall and from T. Colin Campbell was that this was really smart for your health. Even if you're not losing weight, it's good for your health. So I had those two causes. I wanted to lose weight, but I also wanted to be healthy. And I hope those things would marry up and I'd both get healthy and lose weight. So anyway, in a belief that it had to work, I just needed to find the secret sauce. I wasn't ready to give up. If I was still, not knowing about Slim on Starch, I can't say I wouldn't have tried something else at this point that may or may not have worked, probably wouldn't have worked, but wanted something that was really a lifestyle change, not just a diet, something that, doesn't have the artificial things like counting calories and weighing food. Who can do that? there's probably a lot of people who can do that and have done it very successfully, but it didn't fit me. Anyway, I stuck with it because I believed it would work eventually. And maybe I'm more patient than most or stubborn than most, but stuck with it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that however you ended up stumbling upon me, I'm so glad that you did, because you're such an ideal case where you're so close and it's just a little problem that has to be solved. Our personalities mesh very well. We like to solve things and have things make sense. And so for you, I wanted it to all line up and make sense, and it did. Your metrics graph is just terrific. The way that it goes down so nicely and then it levels out with maintenance.
Yeah.
I want to talk about two more things. The first, if you're okay with talking about this, is with your wife. I remember it was so funny. You had to send me a check because we didn't want to tell your wife that this was going on. So talk to me about that, because now it seems like she knows fully what's going on. I mean, you're doing this interview, which is going on the internet.
Well, I would think initially she would just have been thinking her crazy husband is trying another diet that's not going to work, and it's not an investment that needs to be made. And so I would get some pushback. So, and if I'd been very candid and she was pushing back on it, I probably would have respected her opinion and wouldn't have been able to give this a go. So I felt like I knew more about what I was doing than I could explain to her, and that the proof is in the pudding. And if we could have some success, then she'd probably get on board. And I wanted to be successful for myself, but also wanted to have some leadership in my household, and maybe get to a point where she said, maybe this works for me too, and she might want to jump on board. Now that may happen, that may not happen. It's her call, and whatever she wants to do is fine. But this has been successful for me, and she knows that I'm very pleased with it, happy, and can do this for the rest of my life if I choose to. So with the old diet, she had a legitimate gripe that you tried it and it didn't work. This one, hey, you tried it and it worked marvelously. So can't complain.
Mm-hmm. You have one of my favorite primary foods, which has to do with your wife, and it's your drawings. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Well, I never heard the concept of primary foods until I got acquainted with you and Kiki. And, for somebody who doesn't know about primary foods, a lot of times people feel like, hey, I need comfort of some kind, or I need a dopamine hit, or I need something to stimulate me. And they go looking in the refrigerator for the thing that's going to satisfy them. And to some degree, food can, but Emmie, you're a lot younger than me, but in a lot of ways, I think you're a lot wiser than me. And there's Emmie-isms out there. And I think one of the things I heard you say was, if hunger's not the problem, food's not the solution. And, if you're looking for something to give you comfort or to stimulate you in some way, but you're not hungry, don't go looking in the kitchen for a solution. That would be a primary food. Go look at something that would do that for you. And, one of the things that was suggestion is relationships. And I don't have kids. I have my wife, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. So what other relationship is there to focus on? And even if we weren't in the midst of a pandemic, I think I'd want to focus on her. So I thought, okay, I've always tried to make her feel loved and special. Can I amp that up to some degree? And we have a marker board on the refrigerator. A lot of people do that. for somebody who's in interior design, they probably say, no, that's a no, get rid of that. But it's very functional, works great. And so at some point I thought, okay, I'm standing in front of the refrigerator. Here's this marker board. Let me draw something that would make her giggle or laugh. And I had great success with it, which said, okay, I'm going to try to do one a week. The Slim on Starch program's 8 weeks. Let's do one a week. And so I was doing that consistently. I've fallen off a bit, but every one she laughed at. And, it's funny, when she laughs, I'm laughing right along with her. And it's kind of a reward. I'm not getting paid for this, but if I can make her giggle or laugh, I'm excited. At our home, the kitchen is on one floor, and my office is right above the kitchen on the second floor. And she's a late sleeper. I'm an early riser. I get up, I'm working in the office. But before I started working in the office, I've drawn this picture to put on the refrigerator, and then go upstairs, and she wakes up, she goes downstairs, and then I hear her cackle and laugh. And I'm just, yeah, all right, yeah, that was a good one. So she even has on her phone, she has a catalog of all these drawings that I've done for her, which makes me feel good. So if I can make her happy, I'm making myself happy. I was reading in Ephesians the other day, and the Apostle Paul said, he who loves his wife loves himself. So it made me think, the more I can love her, the better my life's going to be. And so if I can pour myself into her, I'm doing better. So it was great to get acquainted with Primary Foods, and she's a great source of focusing on for Primary Foods. So if I'm feeling like, hey, I need a dopamine hit, I'm going to try to make my wife laugh. Do something that tickles her, or spend some time with her, make her feel more special. And by making her feel more special, I think she feels like she needs to reciprocate. So that's all good.
Well, she better lock you up, Johnny, because I'm sure there are women watching that are going to say, where can I get a Johnny? You are just the sweetest man. And it's so clear your love for her. And it was such a joy to be alongside you during this journey and see that part of you too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Learning that was one of the high points of being on SOS. So maybe it's an unintended consequence, but you guys don't get into the business to improve marriages, but I think you improved mine.
Oh, thank you. I do what I can. All right. So you are a golfer. And I actually, when my dad came over right after we had that call and you were talking about wanting to cut your handicap in half, I said, my client, Johnny, his handicap is 8. It's 8, right? Or was it at the time of the call? I go, is that good? My dad's like, yeah, he's good if he has a handicap of 8. But talk to us, because you've been up in the 240s. Now you're at about 188. Is golfing at 240 any different than golfing at 188?
Yes, in subtle ways. Some people would say, have you lost any distance because you're lighter? And I don't think you have to be particularly heavy or thin to hit the ball a long way. So that hasn't changed anything. Being 62 years old is maybe 62 years old and weighing 220 or 240 and trying to get down to look at a putt. You'll see guys on TV, they squat down behind the ball to get a little closer to the ground to read their putt. Well, it's hard to get up if you're 62 years old and 240 pounds. So I feel like, I've regressed a number of years. I feel like I'm in my 40s where, squatting down behind a ball and getting back up, it's not the strain that it used to be. I was playing golf on a sunny day not that many weeks ago, and the sun was to my back, and I was walking down the fairway, and I was seeing my shadow, and I said, whose shadow is that? Who's that guy with a skinny neck? Hey, that's me. So, that was kind of a thrill to see that, but I don't think it's changed my game that much. During the pandemic, the people who are seeing me are frequently on the golf course, and I'm in a club, and a lot of people haven't seen me in a while, and then they see me and they come up and they say, hey, you've lost some weight, you look good. And, I don't have to have that, but that reinforcement is pretty nice. So I like going out to the golf course and seeing some of my friends that are out there, and golf is socially distanced. So you don't have to wear a mask while you're out on the fairways and stuff. But golf has also been a primary food for me. I want to get better at my game, just like your dad. He probably practices chips in the backyard and stuff. So I'll go down into my basement and I'll swing a golf club when I'm thinking, hey, I need something to stimulate myself, or I'm bored, focus on golf. I like to read, and I appreciate that book that you referred to me, The Greatest Game Ever by Mark Frost. If there's any golfers watching, if you haven't read that book or familiar with it, go get it. It's a great book. But reading, my wife, golf have all been things that I recognize when I need some stimulation. Look at those things before you start thinking about what's in the refrigerator or the cupboard.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. Do you want to tell us what you eat in a day?
Well, I had a physical exam in October, and my A1C improved majorly, and my cholesterol improved majorly. But my doctor did have one concern, and that was my glucose was about 112, and he wanted it below 100. And I'm drawing a blank on what the name of the book was, but I think Rachel or you recommended a book on diabetes. It's written by a couple of diabetics. And they recommended intermittent fasting and exercise as ways to control glucose. And so I have I've been limiting my eating hours to an 8-hour window. So from like 8 o'clock at night, no more eating, and I don't eat again until noon the next day or a little later. And that has worked. I measured my glucose this morning, it was 96. So I haven't been eating breakfast, but for lunch, it's usually a salad and a potato. And for dinner, it might be something like turnip greens or green beans, Brussels sprouts, maybe rice and black beans with some salsa on there. My wife thinks I'm a little out there as far as what I put on my food, but salsa doesn't add any sugar or calories on there, and I like that. It's obviously a healthy vegetable, or made of healthy vegetables. But on green beans and Brussels sprouts, I like the Nooch dressing, which is a recipe I got from you. But if not that, it's just plain mustard. Mm. It's spicy. I eat a brown mustard or yellow mustard, but I recognize that my food, if describing those things, people go, well, that's not very exciting. Well, I'm cooking my own food, and I'm not a cook. So things by default are simple. And I can't make things complicated and be successful. So, and I think you said it's okay for your food to be boring. Make something else in your life exciting. And so Barbara and I will play backgammon over every meal. And she's eating her stuff and I'm eating my stuff. And it's not the food that's the center of attention. It's who can beat the other one in backgammon and have some conversation over the meal. So, but in the pandemic, we've been having twice the number of games because I'm home for lunch typically. And so we play 1 million games of backgammon or have in a year's time. And 1 million is a stretch, but just by a little bit. We did play like 1,800 games of backgammon last year.
Wow.
So, yeah, and we're closing in on 200 just for the month of January. So, and you might ask, you keep count? Well, of course. It's not a game if you're not keeping score, right? So we started keeping score when she thought, well, you're just lucky playing backgammon. Where when I was a kid, I played chess all the time. And so backgammon does have an element of luck, but it also has some strategy involved in it. So I insisted that I was winning more games than her, not because of luck, because of strategy. And so we started keeping score so I could prove that. And about 26 years into keeping score, I've never lost a year. I'm like 16 months in a row I've won. But if she was on the phone right now, she'd say, he's just lucky. So.
Well, I think that from this interview, you've proven that you're both very lucky. She's very lucky to have you, and you're very lucky to have her, it seems.
Well, I definitely feel that way. I hope she feels that way. I think she does.
Well, you've touched on everything that I wanted to touch on, and you are just fantastic. Is there anything else you wanted to add to the people that are watching and listening?
Well, I think your program needs to reach more men. I'm not your marketing consultant, but if there are guys out there and if they paid attention, there are more women in your program than men, but this program works for both sexes and it worked real well for me. So if you're looking for something that really is a lifestyle change, not just a diet, it's something you ought to give a shot at. And I don't think you'll regret it. You know, Dan, he's your weight loss leader of all time and maybe for a long, long time. But going plant-based is a healthier lifestyle. I'd encourage people to give that a serious look. Read those books that we talked about. If you're a guy and you think, well, this looks like it's for women, I would tell you there's a lot of women there, and you can get caught in some conversations where some things are talked about, like makeup, something like that. But you just have to look past that. There's lots of good stuff in there, and it's worth sitting through a short discussion about hair color or how you part your hair or
the eyebrows the other day. Yes. For those watching on the Q&A the other day, I was talking about my eyebrows, and Johnny, I didn't know, was on the Q&A, and then we were talking about football teams, and you popped up, and so we knew you were there when the discussion on football came, but you stuck around through the eyebrow discussion for it.
Yeah, well, maybe you need to filter in a few more discussions about football during the Monday chats.
I'll try. Well, thank you so much, Johnny.
Okay, well, thank you, Emmie. Emmie, you've changed my life, and I really appreciate it.
If you're still watching, then go ahead and leave a comment and say, Johnny rocks, because Johnny does rock. So thank you, Johnny, for doing this video. Please send it to any men in your life to inspire them. And I'll see you in my next one. Woo!